to my sewing room. We have another wonderful, fun, and very easy smocking stitch to teach you today. Let's look at some really pretty things, and you'll see one of the reasons I love smocking so much. This adorable little party pants done in red and green and gold would be very, very appropriate for the holiday season. Now for back to school, we can take smocking and have an entirely different look. The little khaki broadcloth jumper with red and beige smocking and little calico blouse or dress underneath that. Absolutely adorable for back to school. And for the little tiny ones, the little bitty girls in this case, although smocking is also for boys, this is a really sweet little dress, a little white dress with pink and blue smocking. Absolutely adorable for the little girls. Now for the baby girls, for summertime, a precious little diaper shirt, which is smocked at the top, and the little panties that go on underneath it, all trimmed in lace, looking ever so pretty for the tiny little baby girl. And this is one of my very, very favorites, a beautiful pink challis dress. And the smocking is done with some tiny little beads, almost like Austrian crystal beads. And the smocking is on the baby wave smocking, the little vines, and in the middle are the little Austrian beads and that pretty little silk ribbon. That's called a spider web rose. Won't you come along with me over to the technique boards, and I'm going to share with you how easy it is to make baby waves. The stitch I'm going to share with you today is called by three names. It is called a one-step wave, a chevron, or a baby wave. It's very easy to do, and let me just show you what it looks like. All right, there is a bottom cable and then a little piece of thread that connects it and a top cable, a little connecting thread and a bottom cable, and so forth and so on. Here's what it looks like stitched in. You see a bottom cable, a little thread that connects a top cable. This goes between the whole spaces. Now, these little bitty ones over here are just little tiny waves. They only go between the half spaces. Now, there's one little trick to remember, and it's a fun little trick. I've taught it all over the world. You've got to go up and down with these. As you can see, they're called waves. That's what it looks like. Now, where do you leave the string? In other words, the floss or the tail of the floss. Pretend like you're thinking about a cat climbing the stairs. All right, if the cat climbs up the stairs, where is the cat's tail? It hangs down, doesn't it? All right, the cat turns around and the cat comes down the stairs. Where is the cat's tail? It's up. If you'll remember that crazy little cat story, it'll make it really easy for you to do a baby wave. All right, now I'm going to show you on this big pleated piece of fabric. I've brought my needle in on the left-hand side of pleat number 1. I'm going to do a bottom cable. You see my thread is on the bottom, and I'm going to come over here and make one stitch. That is a bottom cable. Now the cat is climbing from this row up the stairs, so I'm going to drop the thread down because the cat's tail is down. I'm going to go to the next pleat and make a stitch right there at that pleat. I'm going to pull it in. Now the cat has to turn around at the top of the stairs, so I'm going to put the thread at the top, move over one more pleat, take a little stitch and tighten it. Now the cat is going to come where? From here to here. So the cat is coming down the stairs, so I'm going to put the tail of the embroidery floss up here because the cat is coming down, the tail is up, and I'm going to come down here and make another stitch. Okay, now the cat is at the bottom, has to turn around at the bottom, so I'm going to put the thread on the bottom. I'm going to move over one pleat, make another stitch. Now then, the cat is going to go back where? From the bottom to the top. So I'm going to leave the tail hanging down. I'm going to make another little stitch, and it turns around at the top, so the floss is on the top. I'm going to make a top cable. Now the cat is going to have to come down again. See, here's the top. He's got to come down to here, so the tail is up. Uh-oh, dropped my needle. And I'm going to come down here, make another stitch. And then the cat is on the bottom, so they've got to turn around on the bottom. So we're going to make a bottom cable. Now then, now that you've seen on the big sampler, let me go back over here and get my little sampler, which is pleated really correctly. It isn't a big sample. Let me just show you. Now you help me remember about where the tail is going to be, because that cat is going to go up and down the stairs. All right, I have made a bottom cable. Now that I'm going to go up, I'm going over one pleat, making a top stitch. Now the cat is going to turn around where? At the top. So I'm going to make a top cable. So I throw the thread to the top and make a stitch. Now the cat has to come from the top down to the bottom. So what am I going to do? The cat tail is up because it's coming down the stairs. I'm going to come and make a stitch. And now it's got to turn around at the bottom. That's the clue there. So we're going to make a bottom cable with the thread on the bottom. I'll move over one more time, make one stitch. Now where is the cat going to go? From the bottom up. So I'm going to drop the tail down. I'm going to move up, take a little stitch. Now the cat is at the top of the stairs, so it's got to turn around at the top. So I'm going to leave the tail at the top, and that will be a top cable. I make one stitch, always moving over one row at a time, or one pleat at a time. Now the cat is going to go from the top down to the bottom, so the cat's tail will be up. All right, I'm going to move over one pleat. There we go, make another stitch. Now the cat is doing what? Turning around at the bottom. So I'm going to make a bottom cable. And then I'm going to move up. And you see, I did that pretty slowly. When you really start smocking, you'll move and the stitches will move really, really quickly. Smocking is really fast and fun. And once you kind of remember the cat climbing up the stairs and down the stairs, you will have absolutely no trouble smocking and remembering which way to turn the thread. And now we have a beautiful, beautiful blouse for you called the New Zealand blouse. And we have some really pretty smocked insets in the shoulders of the blouse. The blouse for the series is absolutely beautiful. It has a round yoke, and by the way, I'm calling this the New Zealand blouse. The strip in the middle is smocked. It has piping on either side and a little bit of hand embroidery. And of course, if you have one of the wonderful new embroidery machines, you can put machine embroidery in the middle. I also would like to show you the sleeve on this blouse, which I believe is one of the prettiest sleeves that I've ever seen. It has a little touch of smocking also. Now, let's see how you make those strips that are in the yoke of this beautiful blouse. First of all, to make a smocked anything, you need to use a pleating machine. And I'm just going to show you a little bit about how it works. You simply turn the handle after rolling the fabric, and then you slip it off and the little pleats are made. I'll show you a little bit more in a later show exactly how to use the pleater. This is what the piece of pleating looks like after it's come through the machine. Now then, I'm going to make the piece of piping, so I have a bias strip. I'm going to use a piece of kite cord or gimp cord, and if it has not been pre-washed, I am going to wash it and shrink it, or else there might be a big disaster when we put the piping in the blouse. All right, I have a strip of bias. I'm going to fold it over and stitch it, and there I will have a piece of bias piping. Now then, let's get ready to put it into the smocked strip. First of all, you can use any kind of a tape, a double-sided tape, but really what I love to use is this basting glue that I'm just going to put a few little drops along here, or you can put a little long line if you want to, or just a few little drops, and when it dries, it will stick it, and that way I can baste without any thread. I'm going to lay it up here right in the middle between two of those basting rows. Let it dry just a little bit and it will hold it in place so I can stitch it. And as you can see, after I stitch it, then I'm going to trim it as I've done on this piece. Now to insert the smocked piece into the blouse, here's my blouse front. I'm going to take scissors and trim away. I have made allowance for a seam allowance in there. I'll trim away this little strip because I'm going to put my smocked piece in there. And you don't have to smock it before you insert it. You can wait. In other words, I'm going to cut those two pieces apart. Then I'm going to take one of those pieces, lay it right down on top of the piping, and I'm going to use my piping foot. I'm going to come in here and let the piping ride right in the groove, and I'm going to move it. I can move my needle position over where I can sew right, I'm going to move over one more little bit where I can sew right alongside the piping. And you see, all I did was move my needle position over because I want the piping to stay in the groove of the piping foot. That makes it very, very easy. And if you don't have a piping foot, you can use a zipper foot or some other foot. But anyway, the piping foot makes it really easy. All right, I'm going to open it up now, and you can see how beautifully my piping has been attached to the blouse. And then you can smock it if you haven't already done so. You can go ahead and construct it before you smock it, or you can smock it before you construct it. And now then, I have a really, really wonderful smocked craft for you. For our craft today, we have a really beautiful Christmas ball, smocked of course, and a really beautiful Easter egg, once again smocked. And I have a very, very special guest with me today, my daughter Joanna Pullen Hammett. Joanna, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Show us those pretty balls that you have there.
First, this is a holiday Christmas ball, and this will be the Easter ball. And I'll show you how to put these beautiful eggs together. You take a styrofoam egg, looks just like this. You take your piece of smocked fabric and you insert the egg into your smocked fabric, like this. Then you have 2 gathering threads at the end of your smocking. And you pull the gathering threads just like that, and then you tie the threads at the end. Once the threads are tied, you take your thread and you have to crisscross so the smocking fabric will stay together. So first you take a thread there, and then you just go back and forth until you feel like your egg is secure. Then,
I wonder if you ever do a little glue or anything also?
Oh, of course. I was just about to tell you. Once you feel that your egg is secure, you have to do something to cover up all these threads. Okay. So you can either put a topping, so it could be an ornament like that, or you could use a fancy band, and you can either sew it or you can use your glue and glue it around the fancy band. And your end product, like I said, will either be this beautiful ball or this egg. Either one this would hang on the Easter tree and this would hang on your Christmas tree.
You know what, Joanna, what I really liked looking at too was this little stand where this is really pretty smocking.
It is beautiful.
And so I might even leave that out
all year long because it's so pretty.
And do you remember
want to show your work off all year long?
Remember when you were a little girl, you used to have all the fancy Easter baskets? And I was just thinking now then we should get some of these fancy eggs to go in that Easter basket.
I think so too.
Now, you know, look at the top of the green one. I thought that was really, really pretty. What is all this?
The fun thing about these eggs is you can decorate these eggs any way you want. This egg is they put jewelry on the top,
like a little costume jewelry of some kind,
and they've got little bitty emeralds in here too. I don't know if you can see them or not, but little bitty emeralds in here that just makes this egg unique. And another thing, if it's not perfect, if your little band is not perfect, you can keep on wrapping it around the egg so you can hide up those mistakes because we're not all perfect.
No, and you just have a little more glue, and a little more. You know what else I love about it? I also love those little gold balls that you smocked in there.
I think those are beautiful.
You know, Joanna, how long have you been smocking?
Well, I started smocking probably you taught me when I was a little girl, but then I really started smocking again about a year ago.
And have you found it to be pretty easy?
I really enjoy it, especially on those long airplane rides.
Oh, I love it too. Joanna, thank you so much for joining me today. And now then, we're going to go to our quilt square. This adorable animal alphabet quilt can be used not only to cuddle up in, but also it can be used as an educational tool. I love applique, and really it's the details that make the difference on applique. I love the details on this little flower, the decrease and increase flower, and those really cute little stems. And this is really a fun detail over here. Let me come under here. You make this little flower, and then you go underneath, and you kind of pull it up and out, and it makes it a little fuzzy flower, which is really a whole lot of fun too. I've asked Louise Baird to come to show you exactly how it was that she made those wonderful details on this alphabet quilt. Louise, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Martha. when I do applique, I think often that the details do make the difference. A lot of times you can make details with thread and sometimes with pins or permanent marking pins. The first thing that I want to show is the little flower that has the increases and decreases. I've set up my machine for a zigzag stitch with a satin stitch length, but my width is 0. So even though I've got a zigzag stitch on, my width is 0. And I start in the center of the flower and put my hand on the increase button, and as I stitch slowly, I will increase my width so that I'm covering up my space, and then I end up decreasing my width. And it makes it sort of like a little football in your stitching, sort of like this. Okay?
Okay.
Now a lot of times I'll go over it twice to make sure I fill in completely. Now also to do if your machine has a little football stitch, you can use that. Just adjust the stitch width and length to fit the flower that you have. Now the other thing that
But you can do it if you just have a zigzag.
Yes,
okay,
just a zigzag.
Okay.
Okay, the other thing I wanted to show you on this one is the grass that's growing here, and although I have blue thread here, I'm going to do a little grass stem, and I have used what's called generally a lightning or stretch stitch, and that is a little stitch that kind of goes back and forth, and it gives the look of a stem of grass. Okay,
Well, that
now let
looked
me
easy
just
enough.
take this out here so that we can see it. And it just kind of gives a little look of grass, oftentimes, that you can add. That's a detail you can add.
Now, Louise, if they don't have the lightning stitch, could they just use zigzag for the grass? Okay.
Just
okay.
use a tiny zigzag.
Okay.
Now, the fluffy flower.
Which I love those flowers.
The fluffy flower that Martha talked about, this time I'm going to go back to my zigzag stitch, and I'm going to use a wide stitch width, but I want my length this time to be 0. Or you can drop your feed dogs if you want to. And when I do this...
Now, how wide is your stitch then, Louise?
Mine on this one will be 5,
Okay.
but some machines go all the way up to 9. The wider the width, the fluffier or longer the flower will be. Start out in the center, always start in the center, and just do a bar tack, and that's where it's just a zigzag back and forth in the same place. Now I'm going to always stop in the center, pivot 90 degrees, and then do another bar tack, just building up stitches in the same spot. Every time you have to pivot, you always have to pivot with the needle in the center of the flower.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to do just one more. Once you've done as many as you want, also the more bar tacks, the more stitches you put in the bar tack, the heavier or fuller the flower will be. Then you tie it off and stitch right around the center of the flower, so that now you come to the wrong side and clip the bobbin threads. Okay. And on this one I've already clipped the bobbin threads, and just come to the right side and pull your flowers, your little petals up. Also, the bobbin thread shows there, but it is end up being a little fluffy.
Oh, I think those fluffy flowers are absolutely adorable. Now, do you have another quick trick you could show us on these details, Louise?
Yes, I do. But first of all, one of the things that I like to do oftentimes, if I don't want to add thread to it, I use permanent marking pins. The permanent marking pins that have a very fine point work really well. There's also paint pins that's permanent paint when you finish with it. They work great for eyes and mouth and grass and things like that, so you really don't have to stitch if you don't want to stitch. But the other design detail I wanted to talk about was a satin stitch increase and decrease, but it's a little bit different. I don't have to go all the way down to 0, but as you can see on this one, this is the stripes in the zebra, and I'm just going to follow my design and decrease it as I need to. And whenever I get down to the 0, or however fine it is, that's all that I need to do.
Oh, Louise, that is fascinating. You just kind of either paint it on or sew it on. It also appears to me that one can just have a straight and zigzag sewing machine to do all of these details. And I like that because everyone doesn't have a really fancy machine. Won't you come along with me to my attic where I have a very special antique garment to share with you. This little antique dress I'm going to share with you today is one of my all-time favorites, and I'm going to share with you the secret and the reason I say that in just a minute. A beautiful little high yoke dress. I especially like the way the ruffle has been sewn on, just very, very simply. Come on down to the skirt. It's so pretty. It has 3 tucks, by the way, all put in completely by hand, 4 tucks, another 4 tucks, and look at this really, really sweet little repair. See, some little girl tore a little hole in her dress, and her mom or her grandmother kind of did a little bit of weaving there. I think that's really pretty. Now, this is the special thing I want to share with you. These little long sleeves, you know, it's hard to get puff sleeves to stay up anyway. So this mother or grandmother or whoever made it tied little strings on this 3/4 length sleeve, one at the top and one at the bottom. And these little strings simply tie into a bow. Let me see if I can do this here. Ties into a bow, and then watch what happens. It holds the sleeve into a puff sleeve. Then I'm going to open the little sleeve back out, and you're going to see how sweet it is, and this little sleeve puffs up simply because it had those little ties. So see, this little girl's sleeve is going to be all nice and puffy because of those cute little ties that were in there. For our Sewing from the Heart for today, I have a really wonderful letter that really also ties in with Louise Baird's presentation just a few minutes ago. It says, Dear Martha, American Sewing Guild's Orlando chapter members are sharing their sewing skills. Members have made lap robes, quilts, and toys for various organizations. The Cut-Ups, that's this lady's group, my group, made 54 garments, all sizes of night clothes for spouse abuse in 1997. Our 1998 project is Owie dolls for the Arnold Palmer Hospital for Children and Women, a Central Florida critical care center. Now let me just show you these Owie dolls. You know, when you have to have a shot, it's kind of like, ouch. Well, these adorable little dolls are made by this American Sewing Guild chapter, and you see it has a little frowny face there, done with a permanent marking pen and 2 little eyes and red hair. I guess that's to match me. But these little owie sticks are given every time a child has to have a shot, and so they collect all these wonderful little owie sticks, and then they're able to say, well, I had an ouch, but at least I have another little stick. Isn't that a neat idea? Let me go ahead and finish this letter. Everywhere there are people, groups in need of our sewing skills and our fabric stashes. I urge your viewers to find a need and fill it. It can make your day. Sincerely, Juanita M. Smith, and Juanita belongs to the American Sewing Guild Winter Park Maitland chapter, and her group is called the Cut-Ups. Juanita, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for sending those adorable ouchie or owie sticks. And I bet there are a lot of little children in the Arnold Palmer Hospital that maybe don't mind their shots quite so much because they have those adorable, and they really are so cute, those little sticks that makes it maybe just a little bit better. I'd like to thank every one of you for coming to visit with me in my sewing room today. I've had so much fun, and I certainly hope that you will come back to visit us next time.